Welcome everybody and good morning. It's a lovely sunny day out there. Good to see the sun back. Nice and still. I've got my windows open, so hopefully no noisy trucks or anything will go past. If they do, apologies in advance. So, quick welcome from me. For those of you who've never met me before, because there's some newbies on today. I'm Simon Besley. Our company, Newton Print, based in Devon, and we are commercial printers. We like to say that we're more like a design agency who print in-house. So we have a really good mix of people with print knowledge who've been in the trade for 35, 40 years, and marketing trained like myself. So we have quite a nice approach. We're also Platinum Service Award winners with FIFO for consistent excellence. So we must be doing something right. I've put our URL on there, so you can hop onto our website and have a look at some of the really cool things we do. Started by the family. It's actually started by my dad in 1983, so that's a long time ago. Skip that slide, but that's just some of the cool stuff we do. But if you go onto our website, you can see loads more. It's a bit easier then. Marketer Hub is something that I started in 2017 in sort of response to a few customers, and in particular Lizzie Hardy, who is at ADM Protectin. She's one of our customers, and we do a lot of work with her. She's a fantastic marketer, and she asked if we could set up something for networking and sharing ideas and learning for marketers. To start with around the Southwest, but of course with webinars means we can do it for customers all around the UK and around the globe. I think I don't know if we've got her on today, but one of our customers from Cyprus has been joining in, so that's pretty cool. We've traditionally run live events, 2 or 3 a year, which have gone down really, really well. But now we've started these live virtual marketer hubs on webinar, which is in response to not being able to meet up in person. So here we are. Brief overview of what we'll cover today, introduction, which I've already done, and then we'll hear from Alison Jobson. I'll let Alison introduce herself. But I believe this is her first webinar, so I'm sure she'll do extremely well. It's only just over a month ago that I did my first webinar, and it seems like about 6 years ago. So all the best, Alison. So she'll kick off with her view of how to plan for the marketing post-lockdown, and as we sort of ease out of lockdown, because it's obviously it's not going to be lockdown ends and boom. It's going to sort of phase out over the next few weeks, months. And then I'll give my perspective, and we'll finish up as usual with a question and answer session. So feel free to pop in your questions as we go, either on the chat or there's a Q&A portal there. There's also a couple of polls which you're welcome to answer. I will start those now so that you can see them and you can just answer the questions as we go. Finally, in the handout section, which hopefully you can see on your right hand side, is the slides. If you want to download those and copy them, you're more than welcome. So with that, I'll hand over to Alison. Over to you, Alison.
Thanks, Simon. Morning, everybody. Thanks for joining our webinar this morning. Like Simon said, this is the first one that I've done, and I have to say it's very strange talking to a computer screen. So bear with me. Hopefully, the more I move into this, the easier it will become. So my name's Alison Jobson. I've worked in marketing for 23 years now. The first 13 were working in-house for professional service firms, and then I set up my own business 10 years ago. I entered marketing with a degree in applied biology, which, you know, why wouldn't you? It's obviously a natural career choice with to do marketing when you've got biology. Fell into marketing, started the Chartered Institute of Marketing training courses, and finished up with a postgraduate diploma in marketing. I'm now a chartered marketer and a fellow of the Chartered Institute of Marketing, which is a fairly recent thing. It sounds very grown up and official, but actually I just think it means more membership fees for me. So as I said, I run my own business, Straight Marketing, and we support small businesses, largely owner managed or family run businesses, with their marketing. That most commonly is as their outsourced marketing department. So we work with them on an ongoing basis to help them promote their business, attract new customers, and ultimately increase sales. And we also support businesses with one-off projects or just helping them with their strategy and their marketing plan. which brings me on quite nicely to today's presentation. So here's a quick summary of what I'm planning to talk to you about this morning. I'm going to start by explaining why you need to update your marketing plan for post-lockdown, or if you don't already have a plan, why you need one. I'm going to talk you through how to make a new marketing plan, and then I'm going to finish with some suggestions of low-cost marketing opportunities that you can use to help promote your business, and then hand back to Simon, who's going to share some marketing examples, things he's come across over the last few weeks that he'd like to share with you. I promise I'm not going to talk about pivoting or the new normal, because those are two phrases that I'm already completely fed up with, so you're not going to hear that from me today. So why do you need to update your marketing plan, or why do you need one, as I already said? Well, fundamentally, the market has changed. So the plan that you had at the beginning of the year is no longer valid. Why? Well, even when we come out of lockdown, social distancing measures are still going to be in place. So usual business operations are going to be difficult. Elderly, vulnerable groups are still going to probably be isolating at home, and it looks likely that for some groups they'll be stuck at home until a vaccine is developed. If you sell to consumers, you're going to find that they're cautious about spending money and reluctant to spend on anything that's deemed non-essential. And if you sell, if you're in the B2B market, so if you deal directly with businesses, you might find that your prospects are holding back on investment. They don't want to spend until things are settled down. Some of the businesses that you deal with, some of your clients may have gone out of business already or may cease trading in months ahead. And if your customers have been closed, like you might have been, they might now have to scale back operations. They might still have staff that are on furlough, so that's going to reduce demand for your services. And you may find that some of your competitors have been more active. A lot of people have pulled back on marketing over the last few weeks because they're just worried about spending money. There are plenty of businesses out there that have really invested in this and they've pushed out. You may find they've stolen some of your market share. And also you may now find yourself under threat from low-cost competitors, which suddenly become much more attractive. So basically, it's a different market, and you need to work out how you can adapt your offering to overcome the threats that exist now, but also to maximise the opportunities that arise. So how do you make a new plan? Well, I think the 7 Ps of the marketing mix, and I'm not really one for marketing models, but I think this one's really helpful here. The 7 Ps are highly relevant and can guide you to help you put together your plan. So you're probably familiar with the first 4, which are product, place, price, promotion. But there's also physical evidence, process, and people. So I'm going to look at each of these in turn and explain how they apply to your business and discuss the things that you need to think about. So just to forewarn you, I'm not actually going to give you the answers today. I'm just going to present a whole load of questions that you need to think about, but hopefully they'll guide you so that you can effectively put together a plan. So product, let's start with product. Product is fairly obvious. It's what you're selling. So it's your product, if it's a physical thing that you sell, or it's your service. So accepting that your existing offering might not be as relevant or have as much demand in this new world, how can you adapt your product? So we've already seen lots of businesses do that very successfully while we've been in lockdown. We've got fitness instructors doing online fitness courses, classes. We've got gin distilleries making hand sanitizer, food wholesalers delivering to consumer, and restaurants moving to delivery. So there's some examples of businesses that have already adapted. So what can you realistically do to alter your offering and meet the needs of your customers now? And it's important to remember it's about meeting a need. You need to have a solution to a problem. When you're looking at your product and how you can adapt it, also think about your target audience. Who do you sell to? Is there a natural market that you could move into that you don't currently service? So let's say you sell booking software to the hospitality industry. Could you now sell that into the health and wellbeing sector? Look at what markets are growing, have demand, and see if you can adapt your product or your service somehow to fit into those new markets. Another thing to be thinking about when you're looking at your product is to think about future demand and how you can prepare your business to meet that. Where are the opportunities going to be? Well, here are some of the things that I think are going to happen. Predicting a baby boom at the end of the year. Possibly, well, very likely a rise in number of divorces, separation. We're going to have a greater interest in experiences that we can enjoy with friends and family because we haven't been able to do that for so long. And we're all realizing how precious time is and how precious it is being with people. So there's going to be more interest in how we can kind of capture that. Obviously, a greater interest in health and well-being. We're going to have more demand for staycations and UK short breaks. I think people are probably going to be nervous of taking a 2-week holiday at the moment. Certainly for this year. So people will probably just want short breaks where they can just get away from home for a couple of days and feel like they've had a break without actually taking the risk of going somewhere else and not being able to get back. And we've got a greater acceptance and usage of online communications and collaboration tools. I mean, I never would have thought a few months ago that I would actually be sat here in my office delivering a webinar to a whole load of people I can't see. But now that's just something that we've all taken for granted. And so, you know, that's really going to shape the future environment. So think about where is the future demand? What are the opportunities? And how can you move? How can you just adjust what you do to satisfy those? How will you know what your customers need? Well, why don't you ask them? Last year, I stayed at Centre Parks with some girlfriends for a weekend, so I'm now on their mailing list. And last week, I received an email from them asking me to complete a survey, which was asking me lots of questions about what concerns I might have if I were to go to Centre Parks again, you know, what would prevent me booking, those sorts of things. And that's a really smart move. So what they've done is they've asked people what they think they're going to want, so they can plan for that. So, you know, next week, if the government were to completely lift all lockdown restrictions, which obviously is not going to happen, but let's just say theoretically that was a possibility, and Centre Parks thought, woohoo, let's just open our doors, get everyone back, everyone's going to be dying to come on holiday. Well, they may find that actually people don't want to come and visit because they're nervous. They don't want to be locked in a forest with a whole load of virus-ridden people. So they might not get any bookings. Or they might think, well, okay, let's reopen, but let's do it in a staggered way. Let's restrict access to our communal facilities to make people feel better about coming here. And then people might not book because they want access to those facilities. So in asking the questions now, they know what will encourage people back as the restrictions start to lift. So they can plan for that and they can make sure that their business survives or even thrives as much as possible. Another example I've put on the slide here is One Magazine. For those of you who live in kind of Exeter, East Devon, South Devon area, you'll be familiar with One Magazine. It's an A5 publication that gets put through people's doors. A little bit of content about the local area, but it's mainly an advertising platform for local businesses. That stopped production at the moment because they had too much difficulty with the door-to-door distribution. But they're now emailing out their customers, so the people that book advertising, asking questions about where they're spending money on marketing, where they anticipate they're going to spend in the future. So again, they're trying to work out what our business is going to be doing and how can they adapt their offering to get some of that. And interestingly, last night, I also had an email from Pets at Home. I'm on their mailing list. And again, they were asking, how can we help? What do you want? So ask your customers, because you can't, with funny people are fickle. You can't predict how they're going to, well, there's lots of modeling, but really the only way to really know what's your customers want is to ask them. So moving on to the second P of the 7 Ps, which is place. And in marketing, when we talk about place, we mean where your customers can buy your products or services. And that's obviously a key factor to consider in our world of social distancing. So the obvious question to ask, and I'm sure you've asked this of your business already, is what can you move online? So if you sell from a physical location, can you introduce e-commerce? And if you deliver face-to-face services, can you do that virtually? But another thing to think about is, could you alter your hours of operation? So for instance, if you were a company that serviced fire and security alarms, could you change when you actually go and do that work and move it to out of office to help businesses reduce the number of people that are coming in and out of their premises? And if you're dependent on customers buying from a physical location, how can you adjust your setup to make your customers feel more comfortable and relaxed when they come to see you? And also, how are you going to communicate those changes to your customers so that they know that they'll be safe? So it's very quickly looking at place, and now I'm going to move on to price. Just giving a quick drink. So I've already talked about how money's going to be tight and people are going to be cautious about non-essential spend. So price is obviously going to be a major consideration in people's buying decisions moving forward. I'm not going to suggest that you cut your prices. Cost cutting, it may seem like an obvious solution, but all that does is drive down customer loyalty, reduces profitability, sustainability, and frankly, the race to the bottom isn't a race that you want to win. So what can you do instead? Could you offer flexible payment options so people don't have to pay up front now? They can pay, they can stagger it over the next few months. How can you make it more palatable and more attractive? Could you offer a discount for repeat purchases? So that allows you to hold your price, but it incentivizes people to buy more. And that also helps, obviously, with your pipeline moving forward because you know that there's income coming in. What can you do to kind of package your products or your services to make it seem more attractive and value for money? So is there something else that you could offer which doesn't actually cost you very much, but it suddenly makes the whole thing seem much more valuable to your customer? So for instance, if you deliver training, could you give a free follow-up session in a few months' time to see how they've been able to embed their new skills and offer feedback? If I do a marketing plan for a business, can I suggest that I'll come back in 3-6 months' time to review the plan, see how it's going, see how we can alter it for them? All these things don't actually cost you very much, but they suddenly make the whole thing more appealing to your customer. And actually, those types of approaches are a really good strategy because it gives you the opportunity to make contact with the customer again, get in front of them in the future. So the next P in our 7 Ps is promotion, and I'm not going to talk about this right now. I'm going to park it. Promotion is, as it's fairly obvious how you're going to advertise your products or your services. But as I said, I'm going to leave that to the end because Simon's also going to contribute towards that section. So I thought it was best to delay that. So we're now looking at physical evidence. The P for physical evidence refers to the physical context and kind of the paraphernalia that surrounds your product or service. Could be anything from staff uniforms to your reception area to even your business card, your brochure. It's essentially anything tangible that reflects your brand. So the obvious point to consider here is how you can adapt your physical environment to make customers more comfortable in a post-lockdown world. Obviously, grocery retailers have been all over this in the last few weeks, with one-way systems, restricting number of people in store, protective screens at checkouts, hand sanitizers, etc. And those that have been less conscientious, so for example, in my hometown, Lidl compared to Tesco, have lost customers as a result. So think about your physical environment and what you need to do to adapt that. And obviously for lots of businesses, they're going to be forced to do that by government. But, see if you can go a bit beyond that to make your customers want to come and visit you. Under this heading, I'd also like you to think about what guarantees you can offer to reduce the risk to your customers. So strictly speaking, it isn't physical evidence, but I think it's important to consider it. And what I mean by reducing risk in this context is how can you convince customers to buy from you when they're feeling anxious about spending money? What guarantees can you give them to make it a less risky purchase? It's kind of like a money back guarantee in effect. So here's an example here of Haven. I'm sure you're all aware they have a series of, they have a group of holiday parks in the UK. They're offering a free coronavirus book with confidence guarantee on all 2020 and 2021 bookings. The scheme guarantees that if you have to cancel your holiday due to coronavirus, then you'll get a quibble-free refund or you can transfer to another date. So this gives the customers to proceed to book a holiday to continue with their holiday plans, which they might otherwise have put on hold because the future's just too uncertain. We've got no idea whether we're still going to be social distancing or even in lockdown again, you know, in 6 months' time. But with this guarantee, if you'd normally book an October half-term break, you can still do so and know that if you can't go because of coronavirus, you can book it. So guarantees are, so if you can build in a guarantee, that will encourage customers to book with you or to use you again. So think about what guarantees you can give. And also make sure that you can evidence the quality of your offering. So case studies, testimonials. If you haven't been gathering them over the last few weeks, and I would urge you to make sure you do that for your business now, because they help convert customers. They give them the confidence to buy from you. So moving on, process. So the key question I think you need to ask under the banner of process is, are your promises and your service level guarantees still relevant or viable? And if not, what needs to change? The last thing you want to do in a difficult environment is to overpromise and underdeliver. During lockdown, many of the high street retailers have changed their delivery terms and returns policies in acknowledgement that logistics are tricky. So, for example, H&M has got free delivery and 100-day returns at the moment. Joules has increased delivery to 10 working days, 365-day returns. M&S 90-day returns. So this encourages customers to purchase clothes from them where they might be thinking, oh, actually, that's going to be a pain because if it doesn't fit, how am I going to return it? I might not be allowed out of the house, particularly if you're one of the vulnerable groups for several months to come. So small changes just give your customers reassurance that they can still go ahead and buy from you. So what processes do you need to amend? You need to look through your processes and, as I said, your guarantees and your promises and see if they're still relevant. So this is the final P before we come back to promotion, people. So people are basically all the people within your organisation that reflect your brand, that deliver your product or your service. But under this heading, I want to make you think about what strategic alliances. So think about what strategic alliances can you form, and what are the I can't get my words out. What are the synergistic businesses or charitable associations, for example, could you partner with? And this webinar is a living example of that. So you know, it's two businesses co-presenting a seminar, each delivering their own area of expertise, and each benefiting from exposure to each other's contact database. So think about partnering up, strategic alliances. Some examples of major brands that have done that during lockdown. We've got Deliveroo, who partnered with M&S and BP petrol or service stations to be able to deliver non-essential, essential food items to their customers. So you order on the Deliveroo app and then you get a delivery via Deliveroo. Another one, I don't know if you've heard of these guys, it's a Chinese e-commerce giant called JD.com. They've partnered with the Chinese music label, the Thai Music Group, to create an online clubbing experience where they've brought in major alcohol brands for the experience. So they now host a 3-hour live clubbing show every week with talent from Thai Music Group. And during that time, they sell imported liquor brands that viewers can buy directly from the stream. And according to JD.com, Budweiser, Remy Martin, Carlsberg and Pernod Ricard have all made sales during those live clubbing sessions. So that's a really perfect example of collaboration and adapting in a strange environment. So whistled through that, hopefully that all made sense. As I said, lots of questions rather than answers, but hopefully they'll get you thinking. I'm now going to, so now you've formed your strategy, I'm now going to move on and talk about how you might promote it to your customers. And obviously I'm sensitive to the fact that budget's tight, so we all want to do things as cost effectively as we can. So the areas that I'm just going to chat you through now are what I would say are low cost or they're free. So I'm going to start with social media. Social media is a really good platform for you to raise the profile of your products and services, to engage with a new community, and to just expand your network. It's generally free to use. Where you should start is to think about the social media channels where your target audience are hanging out. So don't pick a channel because you use it a lot and you like it. You need to think about, who am I marketing to and where are they going to be? And those are the channels that you want to focus on. If you're not already using social media, then I'd suggest that you only start with one channel. But regardless of whether you're on it now or you're just starting, I'd suggest that you don't jump on every channel, because you need to invest the time. It's much better to do one social media channel really well than do lots badly. So pick your channel. And the next thing then is to be active on your channel. And what do I mean by active? Well, you need to regularly share content. You need to engage with people. It's not enough to just stick all your promotional stuff out on Twitter or LinkedIn or Facebook, whatever you're on, and expect that to work for your business. You have to put the time in to engage with people. So you need to, invite new people to join your network. You need to like, comment, and share. Be part of the conversation and the community. And what I found over the last few weeks is the most important thing is to be sharing information that's valuable, that's useful, that's helpful. There's been quite a kickback on selling at the moment, and particularly on LinkedIn, everybody's saying, you can't sell, it's just not appropriate at the moment. There can be some selling, but really the focus needs to be on, how can you help people? What information can you share that is going to be a benefit to them? And you will find that then reaps rewards for you, because you're putting yourself out there as somebody that knows what they're talking about and also wants to help people. So you will actually generate sales as a result of that. So social media is a very useful tool if you haven't got much marketing budget to use. The next important area that you need to focus on is your website. And the most important thing on your website is a blog. If you don't have a blog on your website, you absolutely need one. Why? Because a blog is, there are loads of reasons why you need a blog, but the most important ones are, it's brilliant for search engine optimization, which basically means getting found in Google. The reason for that is you are regularly adding fresh content. Google doesn't like websites that don't regularly add good content. Also, every time you blog, it's a page of new content on your website. So you can use a blog to push some of your keywords, which then might get picked up in Google. It's also an opportunity for you to add content to your site but taken away from the main content. Websites with reams and reams of content don't work well anymore, because people don't have the attention span. They don't want to have to read pages and pages before they get to what they want, or before they feel that they're ready to contact you. So you can strip away all that from the main content of your site, and then you can put it in your blog. It's a really good place for it. When you're thinking about what to blog about, do some keyword research. The Google AdWords Keyword Planner tool is a really good place to start with that. So find out what your customers are searching for, and then write blogs that will answer what they're searching for. So think about questions. I don't know about you, but whenever I want to find something on Google, I will ask Google a question and it will return all these websites that will answer my question. So think about what questions your customers might be asking in relation to the products or the services that you're offering, and then ask them through your blog. Answer them through your blog. How often should you blog? Well, you should aim for at least twice a month, more if you can do it. But I recommend you commit to at least 2 a month. And the best way to work a blog is to do an editorial calendar. So what I mean by that is basically write down, come up with all the topics that you think that you can cover in your blog. If you do all that work up front, when it actually comes to writing the blogs, you'll find it much easier, because you won't sit there and go, oh God, I need to write a blog, but I have really no idea what to write. What should I do today? You can just go to your blog editorial calendar. And also it's a more strategic way of writing content than just randomly, what can I do today? Obviously, I've talked about social media and how brilliant it is, but you're not in control of the social media platforms, whereas your website you are. So use your social media channels to bring people to your website. Don't rely on them only. Facebook used to be a fantastic platform for small local businesses. And in fact, many small businesses didn't have a website. They just ran it all through Facebook. But the rules of the game have changed. And now, unless you're prepared to pay to put content on Facebook, you can't guarantee that it's going to get the visibility or engagement than it would have had in the past. So that just shows that it's a risky strategy to invest all your time, all your money in social media. You need to bring your people to your website where you're in control of the message and you're in control of what happens with them. So that's why your website is really important. The next thing that you can look to do is email marketing. Email marketing is obviously quite low cost, and also the major benefit of it is that you can track the success of it. So if you send an email, you can see who's opened it, if they've clicked on any links, what they've done with it. So it's it's much more informative than other forms of marketing. In fact, all digital marketing tools are generally more informative because it's trackable. So email marketing is a good tool to have in your marketing toolbox. There are loads of email marketing platforms available to you. I use MailChimp. I'm quite happy with how it works. There is a free version which you can use. I think it's better if you pay. It doesn't cost a lot. I think I spend probably under £10 a month on my MailChimp account. The reason I pay is that I then don't have the MailChimp footer on my email, so I think they look a bit more professional. And also it gives you greater functionality, so you can segment your lists, which is obviously quite important because you don't, when you're doing any form of marketing, you want to be able to target it and not just blanketly send it to everybody. So what can you do with email? Well, it can be a brilliant way to contact people cold. And I'm talking in a business-to-business context. So you can use it as a way to make that first contact with a business and to introduce them to your products and services. You can use it to keep in touch with existing customers, to update them, new products, new services, what's going on. And if, like me, you provide a service, you can do it to share your expertise and to give them something back, which hopefully then will bring them to you when they actually need your services and are willing to pay for them. So I recommend that you use email marketing. Now I'm going to talk about direct mail. You might think, direct mail, isn't that going to be expensive and isn't that really old hat? I love direct mail. And the reason I love direct mail is because so many people have moved away from using direct mail because it is seen as old hat and traditional. But who doesn't love to receive something in the post? And how often do you get lots of posts now? So direct mail is a fantastic way, I'm talking B2B here, of getting in front of your customers. I've run loads of direct mail campaigns with my clients. I've sent Kit Kats in the post, although I would just warn you to make sure you put the right postage on, because I had that once and it was rather embarrassing. I did it for my own business and I sent out a campaign with a Kit Kat, and it was quite a small campaign. I sent it to about 25 people and I'd underestimated the postage. But the only people that complained to me were the accountants. And I even had one who, as I offered to return the postage they'd had to pay or donate it to a charity of choice, who actually replied and asked me to backs pay the £1.50 that they'd had to pay for the incorrect postage. So Kit Kat's great, but make sure you get the right postage. One of my clients is in IT support, and we've run a series of greeting card campaigns. So we've done cards for Valentine's, May Day, Easter, Christmas, Bonfire Day, Halloween. So think about what you can do that's a little bit different to grab people's attention. And you can use holidays, anniversaries, special events as a hook. And it doesn't have to be expensive. A greetings card is really not very expensive. And also you can send it on a normal stamp envelope. So some tips to improve your direct mail. Send them in small batches. And the reason I say that is because then that allows you to do follow up. If you're going to spend the time sending somebody something, you really do need to follow up with them afterwards. And I'm going to come back to that in a minute. Handwrite the envelope, because then it looks more personal. It's going to make people more likely to open it. And if you're writing to people that might have gatekeepers, they've got PAs or whatever, they're less likely to open it if it looks like a personal communication. You could use something like a coloured envelope, or go for lumpy mail, which goes back to my Kit Kat, because then it looks a bit intriguing and people will think, oh, what's in there? And they're more likely to open it. And also it's more memorable when they do open it and they see what's inside. Excuse me. So post letters on a first class on a Friday. So they arrive on a desk on a Monday. And the reason I say that, because I don't know about you, but, you know, by Friday, I'm absolutely flying and I'm banging all the work out and I'm on it. Monday morning, I'm like, oh, I can't be bothered to do any work. So post is a really good way to ease yourself into the working week, opening your post. So I would suggest that you aim for a post arriving on a Monday. I did a LinkedIn post on this a few weeks ago, and someone commented that they find that if letters arrive, I think it was Tuesday, they have a much better hit rate. So you might need to play around with it a bit, but you know, I think Monday is a good shout. And then follow up with a phone call on Wednesday or Thursday. And the reason you need to follow up is because you know what it's like. You get something, you look at it, you think, oh yeah, that's quite good. And then you just put it aside because you haven't got time to look at it and something else crops up. So if you ring up, it brings it back forefront of mind. And also it gives you an opportunity to gauge their response to what you sent and find out if they're interested or not. So they might say to you, oh yeah, I thought that was really great, but I've just signed up with someone for another 18-month contract. So at least you know then, and you can plan for that, and you're not going to keep pestering them, and you can kind of diarise, right, we'll follow up in such and such a time. So if you speak to people on the phone, then you know where you are, and you're not going to waste future marketing efforts if they're just dead in the water to you. If you're not comfortable doing it yourself, you can outsource it to telemarketing people. I know I'm not great cold calling, but the fact is, if you sent something in the post, not quite a cold call, because you have got an immediate reason to call them. The next marketing tool, which is generally low cost and is available to you, is PR. So that's courting the press, approaching relevant media with interesting stories, news articles, ideas, to hopefully get editorial content in a trade magazine, on a website, or even on the TV or radio. Not only is editorial content significantly more effective than advertising, because it's got the endorsement of the editor and people generally will pay more attention to it, but it's also free. But again, like everything that's free, it does require your time. So how do you do this? Well, your first thing to do is to think about who are your target press, and again, this comes back to your target audience. What are your target audience reading? What are they watching? What are they listening to? That's your target media. So draw up a list of target media, do some research, watch the programme, read the magazine, get a feel for the content that they cover, and then think about how can you get your business in there. If it's a simple story such as you've increased sales, you've opened new premises, you've taken on new staff, you've introduced something really exciting, you could just send that as a straightforward press release. If you've got an idea for something that is more of a kind of a feature article or a story, don't ever write the article and then send it to the journalist or the editor. Because if they're not interested in it, if it's not the right fit for the magazine, or it's not the right time, and you've spent hours crafting something, you've just wasted all that time. So instead, approach them with a synopsis of your idea or a suggestion of what you think that they might like to cover, and then let them come back to you and shape the story. And if they are interested, then you can work with them to develop the story. So don't, as I said, write an amazing article and then be really disheartened when you send it and it's just not the right fit for them and they say thanks but no thanks. Like your direct mail, if you are sending press releases, then make sure you follow up with them because they get lost in inboxes. You know, if you think you get a lot of emails, imagine what the main editor on a newspaper, imagine the volume of emails they get every day. So do follow up, but be sensitive to kind of print deadline days and things, because you're going to get pretty short shrift from them if you ring when they're trying to get their magazine out the door. Final area I'm going to touch on is referrals. A lot of us aren't very good at asking for referrals, but don't we all love to give a referral? There's a real feel-good factor about passing on details to somebody and then them having a really successful experience. So people like giving referrals, but sometimes if we don't ask for them, they don't think to give them. So if you're in B2B and you've got some really good clients that you've got good relationships with that really value your service, why not ask them if they can recommend you to somebody else? Go on, be brave, do it. You might be surprised. If there's a specific business that you know of, that you have in mind, then mention that specific business, because quite often it's easier if someone says to you, oh, I'd really like to get into Joe Blogg's Carpenters Limited. You don't know anyone there, do you? Then if you just said, oh, could you refer me to any other business? So think about who you'd like to get in with, and don't be afraid of asking your customers, because I think you'd be pleasantly surprised, because like I said, we all do like to give a referral. There's a real good feeling in being able to refer a business. And if you deal with if you sell directly to consumers, then think about introducing a referral scheme. So kind of like a refer a friend type thing, where they both get a kickback if they refer you. So if you've got, you know, if people are happy using you, then exploit that to get new work. So that's just an overview of some of the marketing tools that are available to you that I think will help you promote your business and deliver your new marketing plan, but aren't going to cost you the earth. I'm now going to switch over back to Simon, who's going to show you some examples of things that he's seen recently.
Alison, thanks. That was a really, really good overview. Love some of those tips that you've given us as well. Love the Kit Kat thing. I noticed on the chat, Adam Coop on about Kit Kats and similar for high value prospects. You might need to spend a little bit more if it's really high value. But yeah, it's a great idea. So I'm just going to, sorry, carry on.
Sorry, I was just saying it was a 4-finger Kit Kat I sent as well. It wasn't just.
Well, I mean, if you're going for like you're a Princess Yachts or somebody like that, you might need to be game a little bit. Maybe a box of lint or something. By the way, that's the way to my heart, a box of lint. So I'm just going to quickly rattle through some add-on ideas, tactical, and also show you some examples of really nice sort of bounce back marketing that I've seen over the past few days and weeks. Before I start, just a quick shout out to a chap called Philip Warner, who messaged me just before to say that he couldn't come on today because his one of his neighbours died last week, and they're having a drive past down his street today on the way to the cemetery, obviously because they can't visit. So he's going to be standing outside to pay his last respects, and I thought that was lovely. It made my day. So all the best to Philip. Quickly to go through some of the ideas and some of the tips I've had. Mine are more tactical. Obviously, Alison's been through some great strategic tips for us. But just quickly on some ideas and some tips from what I've picked up. Use your time wisely, because now you might have more time than usual, and you might be making the most of it. But there will come a time, and it will probably come faster than we all think, when we're back to flat out again. So you might be busy on LinkedIn and social media and everything like that, responding to posts and all this sort of thing. Just have a good look, like you always should do, at whether it's valuable to your brand and whether it's contributing to your goals. And when I say contributing and generating ROI, not necessarily instant sales, but whether it's doing brand building or brand awareness, or whether you're improving your standing in the community, all these sorts of things, they're high ROI, even though they're not necessarily generating instant sales. So have a look at what you're doing. As I've put on there, concentrate on cleaning the ship. So get your business ready, get your marketing plans ready, like we've been over. Go over the slides when we finished, and just check back your marketing plans. Maybe build a couple of 2 or 3 different scenarios, because we don't know how the future is going to pan out. But use the time that we've got now well, and you'll not regret it, because you'll be ready for when things start to return to normal. Second point is to think about the activities you're doing and whether you're whether these activities are contributing to short-term goals, medium-term goals, or long-term goals. And as I've put on there, I personally would aim for a split of 40% each on short and medium term and 20% on long term. So you're not completely neglecting the long-term campaigns and long-term activities, but I would suggest that now might not be the best time to do loads and loads of long-term planning. A, because you don't know what's going to happen. You don't know what the whole scenario is going to look like in 3 months, 6 months, a year's time, but also because your business probably needs some instant wins and some short to medium term wins. So have a look at that. And most importantly, is not to forget your customers and your core business. So you might be looking at some alternative revenue streams right now, but don't forget what is really important, and that is your customers. Your customers that have been with you for, maybe for 15, 20 years, maybe they've been with you for a few years, but just don't forget them, and don't make sure that they know that you haven't forgotten as well. So get in touch with them, talk to them. Third point, and this is similar to Alison's point about the people element of the 7 Ps, is not to forget your wider audience. So you're not just thinking about your customers, but a marketer's responsibility is to protect the brand throughout the whole sort of macro ecosystem. So looking at staff, looking at contractors, looking at suppliers even. Make sure that your brand values are not forgotten. Make sure that your staff and your customers and your contractors aren't feeling forgotten too. Think about staff that might have been furloughed, may have been working from home, and make sure that they are still feeling engaged with the brand, because it could be that you've got some staff that's still working, some that are still coming to work, and some that are furloughed. So you need to think about how you treat them when they start coming back. One thing that we've seen is a rise in people wanting to produce little staff packs. So they're doing little packs for staff either on furlough or that are just coming back to work to build the brand. So it might be things like a little water bottle, a little power bank that's branded, or a pen, really nice pen and notepad, or it might even be some goodies, something really simple like a pack of tea and some nice chocolate. All these little things, and a handwritten letter as well. That really, really makes a difference. Like Alison said, particularly now, if it comes from management, senior management, to the staff and to customers, it really, really makes a difference. And as I said about suppliers as well, don't forget your suppliers, because if you've got good supplier relations, it's really, really, really valuable, because you get a lot more out of them. Final little shout out before I go on to some of the examples is, how will face-to-face be replaced? So exhibitions also been cancelled for a couple of months now, and pretty unlikely to come back in the near future. Also, if you rely on sales reps, sales reps going out to distributors or direct to customers, think about how you're going to replace the tangibility of having that face-to-face contact. Obviously, you can't completely replace it, but you can do things like Zoom calls, and you can do things like webinars like we're doing now. But then you've also got to think about something in their hand. So often when you're going to an exhibition, or you've got a sales rep come in, you're left with something in your hand, that's something physical and tangible, that really cements the brand in your mind. And this is really important if your brand doesn't have much tangibility anyway. So for example, if you're a service, if you're a software service, or you're a solicitor or an accountant, and people are buying your service and they're not actually getting anything tangible. So it's really important to make them feel that they've got something there physical as part of your brand. So think about your digital marketing. It's really not going to cut it in the same way as direct mail in this regard. So have a look at some even small scale direct mail you can do. You can just send out a nice handwritten letter, and it will mean a lot. Or you can, of course, speak to somebody like me and talk about how you can use direct mail. So let's move on to some examples. I've got some pretty cool ones here. Yeah, just briefly, this is an example of a really, really simple plan that we're using at the minute, this template, for some of our short to medium term plans and campaigns. you'll be able to get this on the slides when they download, because you probably can't read it very well on the screen. So think about how you can adapt. And here's an example from an estate agent. They've got a few offices down here in South Devon. Some of them might be on the call as well. They're a customer of ours. But they've got some of their clients to do little video shows around their home that's on the market, because obviously you can't physically go and do an appointment around a house. I think that's really, really cool. So they've got the personality of the people trying to sell their home, and it's coming through in the video, and they can still have some, semblance of normality. Slide. Distract. Obviously, there's a lot of coronavirus content around at the minute, and a lot of it isn't good news. So sometimes you need to be really, really sensitive about this, but it can be quite nice to distract with really, really neutral and non-aggressive, non-controversial content. So the first example on the left, and I don't know if you can read this because it's a bit small, but basically this is an ad by a startup company, and they've done it in a bus stop in central London. All it says is, "Our first ever poster seen by a runner and one pigeon." Typical. And that single offline ad has been shared online, and it's got some really, really good traction. I mean, you can see this post here. This is just one post, and within a few days, it's had 842 reactions, so likes, shares, etc. And that's just one example of a post. So that's really, really cool content. The second one I've got there is just sharing around some really sort of easy to read distraction content. And this is by a creative agency who shared it around to their network. And for, designers and creatives, that's really cool. And for printers like me, Pantone beer cans, it's just really, really nice. And it's just a really nice way of distracting people from the here and now, but without being controversial. Really, really good idea to share knowledge as well, because if you've been in your industry for quite a while and you know your stuff, that knowledge is worth something. And if you're giving it away, it doesn't cost you anything. But it really means a lot. And I've got a post there on the left from one of our customers who's just put a post about, wanting to share her knowledge and inviting people to ask questions and things. And I think that's really, really good, really valuable as well, because if you're willing to share, that people aren't going to forget that when all this is over. Second little screenshot I've got there is from a company called the Parts Alliance, which I noticed on LinkedIn and some other social platforms. They're sharing content to help their customers, which are service stations and garages, MOT service centers, that type of thing. And they're helping them with their marketing plans. And I think that's really, really powerful. If you've got a distributor model in particular, think about how you could use this in your own business as your own marketing plan, because I can guarantee it's cost them very little to do that. They've just set up some helpful guides and things that their customers can use. And of course, it benefits them, because if their customers are marketing, it means they're going to be busier, which means they're going to be buying more. Share content. So I've got an example there of an accountant's firm across the southwest and south of England, and they're sharing content, really, really useful. I've been reading some of their articles. They're really, really helpful articles for business owners and for managers, and also for self-employed and other type of people. So think about how you can use your knowledge to share content. On the right there, I've got an example of one of our customers who asked us to produce a colouring book for them, which they're sending out to their customers to keep the kids occupied. Really, really simple. Hasn't cost them a huge amount, but I imagine very, very powerful. Here's some of the staff packs I was talking about. So on the left there, we've got another professional services firm, Bishop Fleming, who sent out to all their staff just some little packs of tea and chocolates, that type of thing. Really, really nice touch. On the right there, that's actually an uncle of mine who's placed on furlough, and his company sent him a pack of goodies, all sorts of stuff for him and for his kids, and they're all named as well for his kids. I thought that was a lovely touch. So think about what you could do for your staff, and then think about what you could do for customers as well in a similar vein. And here's here's another example of somebody who's done this for customers. So they just sent out a box of chocolates and a little handwritten greetings card to some of their customers. And this is I believe a startup company as well. Jess Robson, she's been on some of our webinars, and she told me that she'd done this in response to our first webinar, which is all about marketing messaging. So that's a really, really nice touch. So just think about what you can do for your customers and your staff in terms of something physical, something that makes them feel valued. And just a quick shout out on that, we're actually producing some kids activity packs, including adult colouring in and all that sort of thing. We're going to be launching them hopefully next week, so just keep your ear out. So let's move on to the Q&A. Have a look and see how many questions have come in, if any. So we've got some here. First one, we got Fiona White. This is one for you, Alison, I think. Where will I get a blog editorial calendar?
You won't. You have to write one. All it is a fancy term for basically just writing a list of blog topics and then diarising when you're going to publish them. So the reason you want to diarise it is because some things will be kind of calendar specific. So look for the next 6 months ahead, work out what topics were relevant when. So it's basically a list of topics and a date of when you're going to publish it. It's nothing fancy.
Yeah, something that can be done in Excel. I noticed Matthew Riley's posted on there. Fiona's worth having a look at. A couple of templates he's put on there. But it's not hard as long as it works for you, and as long as it's not a document that you do once and just leave to rot away in some hidden folder somewhere. So keep it an active document.
Yeah.
Question here from Benjamin Didier. How do you split proportion of your marketing efforts between wider brand awareness activities and directly trying to engage with target prospects? Alison, I'll let you go first.
Okay. I think it depends on whether you're selling direct to businesses or to consumers. I think if you're selling to businesses, I would spend a greater proportion in engaging direct. I don't know, say a 60-40, 70-30 split. Whereas I think if you're dealing direct with consumers, I think there'd be more focus on the profile raising, not least because it's quite hard to sort of directly target consumers because they're much more diverse and it's harder to use things. I mean, you can do kind of Royal Mail door drops and things, but you kind of can't write to them like you would with a business. Email, again, is a bit more of a struggle because you've definitely got to make sure that it's all GDPR compliant. And I think in my mind, I would do more profile raising than direct if it was your business to consumer. B2B, I think you need a much greater focus on directly targeting.
Yeah, that's cool. And it also, sorry.
Do you agree, or what do you think?
Yeah, I do. Yeah, I do. Also think about what you're selling. It depends very much on what you're selling as well. So it might be, I know we had a question on a webinar, I think it's a couple back now, about how to advertise sensitively when you've got, I think this is actually a retail environment, and they were trying to sell their sort of leisure and outdoor range. So they had things like sun loungers and outdoor chairs and that sort of thing that people are going to buy. Let's face it, because we've had really good weather and people, are buying home and garden stuff at the minute. And they had a question around how to do that sensitively, and it's a really, really good question. I don't necessarily have all the answers to it, but you need to think about how you can, if you are going to directly try and engage with prospects, how you can do it sensitively, and how you can maybe soften the ground first. So you might need to do webinars like this to start to promote yourself as a bit of an expert in the field. You might need to soften the ground with a bit of direct mail before you target them. Yeah, it's a sensitive one, that. So think about what you're selling, think about who your target market is, and maybe try and gauge some response. Maybe try and ask a few people, typical customers. It's always a good idea to ask, as Alison said. I think that is all the questions, unless there's any more that anybody's got. Hopefully you've had a look at the poll, the 2 polls. Handouts, you can download the slides. I think you get it. That's all the questions come in. Alison, I don't know if you've got any sort of final flourishes to add.
I'd just like to say that through lockdown and kind of, continuing way into May, I'm doing free marketing consultations for businesses. I pledged to do 1 a week throughout this time. So if anyone would be interested in taking up one of those, then please just drop me an email, ajobson@straightmarketing.co.uk, and I'll try and schedule you in for one of those. So it'd be a 3-hour online marketing consultation.
That's a fantastic offer, Alison, and I'm sure you'll get the take up. Oh, looks like one more question has popped in before we leave. As a B2B photographer, I'm conscious that I need to supplement my LinkedIn activity with Instagram, Facebook. Any experience? I have not got much experience with Instagram and even Facebook, really. Alison, how about you?
Yeah, I mean, I think LinkedIn is much more a B2B platform. Instagram is very visual, so it's perfect for photographers. And ultimately, we're consumers, but most of us are employed or run businesses or whatever. So whilst we might be on Instagram in a personal capacity, there is still that work link. However, Facebook, as I said earlier, I really wouldn't bother with. If you're not already on it, I just wouldn't bother with it, because it's so hard to get engagement, visibility, because just Facebook just doesn't show your content to your page followers, really, unless you pay for it. So I just wouldn't really, I'd bin it off, really. Instagram could be a possibility. Happy to have a chat with you offline about it. But it's not, it is much more of a B2C platform than LinkedIn. If you're going to, like I said at the beginning, focus on one platform, do it well, I would really just focus on LinkedIn.
Great. Yeah, I haven't got anything really to add, except to echo what you say, that it's better to do 1 or 2 programs as platforms really well than to try and spread your branches too much, particularly if you're working on your own. Yeah,
and these things take a long time to build a following. You need to invest a lot of time in them. So you have to consider whether it's worth it.
Yeah, great. Right. I've just popped the download link for the handout files, because some of you have said that you couldn't see the handout section. So feel free to download them. We'll also be sending out the recording straight after this. But if you don't get the